In our first story of this hour, enforcement of intellectual property rights is important to economic growth, especially as Vietnam joins the global playing field. VTV spoke with Mr. Peter Fowler, U.S. Regional IP Attaché for Southeast Asia, to learn more about the application of intellectual property rights in Vietnam, as well as the legal framework and conditions for their implementation. Let's take a look.
Mr. Peter Fowler, thank you so much for joining us today. First of all, what is your opinion about the current situation of intellectual property rights enforcement in Vietnam?
I think what I'm impressed with is that Vietnamese officials are understanding that it's not just enough, and they've worked very hard to put into place strong IP protections, but they also need to address the practical enforcement issues of infringement and counterfeiting. And I say that is the biggest challenge today for the enforcement system.
How will the intellectual property rights benefit the American and Vietnam businesses?
What U.S. companies that have products and brands that are IP dependent are looking for is a good legal framework that protects their products, that protects their copyrights, their trademarks, their patents and designs, and an enforcement system that takes action when necessary against people who are infringing on those rights. If that happens, I think U.S. companies will take to Vietnam very significantly, and under the TPP there'll be a much broader range of engagement on trade and commercial issues.
In your opinion, what should Vietnam do to improve the intellectual property rights enforcement?
I've been looking at this issue in Vietnam for a long time, and I think the two things that are recognized as probably the biggest challenges where improvement can be made is in the area of coordination between existing enforcement agencies, so that there's better sharing of information, better coordination of their enforcement efforts. And the other thing that I'm really, really supportive of and urging the government to take a serious look at is the creation of a specialized IP court, because again, that sends a very strong message, not only how Vietnam will deal with intellectual property cases and disputes, which tend to be a little bit more difficult or technical than regular civil disputes, but it also sends a strong message to investors that Vietnam will take intellectual property matters and disputes seriously, and the IP will be protected here.
Thank you for interviewing.
Thank you very much for having me.